What's up, everybody? Real with Omar, season 2. Again, today's special guest, good friend of mine, 4-time world champion martial artist Joseph Rivera. But today, what we're going to talk about, what we're going to start with, is the language of greatness. We've been talking off the camera for about half an hour now, so we're kind of like warmed up. We were just talking about Kobe Bryant, right? So let's expand a little bit on Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was unapologetically in pursuit of being the best, right?
Right.
But Kobe Bryant was also very publicly, admittedly, copying Michael Jordan.
Right.
Right. So we were talking about something where Kobe is unapologetically, easily telling people, you'll get away from me if we're not talking the same thing. Mm-hmm. All right. And the language of greatness, it transcends, right? Because as you get better at something, it actually becomes more of a specialist. And at the top of the pyramid, number one is number one. There's nobody else. There's only one, right? What do you think it takes? And you being in the martial arts world, and we're going to dump into that for a second. But what do you see people, young people, in the beginning of their stages? And martial arts is a discipline, right? I think I sent you something yesterday. It was pretty funny. It was an Asian child like doing some crazy shit in the rain, and you're like, no, it'll never happen over here in America. Because there's a level of discipline. There's a level of a culture attitude.
Coddling.
Attitude towards their children, right? And I believe America has gotten a little soft, and I believe it's gotten accelerated soft with the proliferation of the internet. What do you've been in the game since when? Let's give it some color.
I've been teaching, coaching since '92.
Okay, since '92.
Even as a competitor, I was still coaching. So
were you the champ of the world?
I was still coaching.
You were still coaching.
Yeah, because I was a member of a team. So, with any good team.
But you were coaching like really like good athletes, right?
Yeah.
Really good athletes.
These are already high level kids.
And these kids were already like kind of being groomed as, you're going to compete for the world title.
Right.
So that's like a little different than the regular person that says, I just want my kid to stay in shape or learn discipline or do this. So what's the biggest factor or differentiator you see with somebody who's going to specialize at trying to be the best in the world?
Right.
And somebody who just wants to, I want to introduce discipline to my child. I want to introduce leadership characteristics. I want them to understand that discipline can lead into other things. What's the major difference?
So the simple thing, the thing you can't teach, and the thing that most of the time, what I think is sometimes not recognized by parents or coaches or teachers, what it starts with is that personal ambition. You'll usually see it. Like there's just certain kids that just automatically have this drive to want to be better. Personally, I think it's in almost every kid. I think it depends on the level of coddling that the parents, the cushion. Sometimes if the nest is too soft, they'll distort that initial ambition. But in my personal experience, everybody has it in them.
Okay.
And usually, if you are questioning whether or not your kid is showing that right level of ambition, the first thing you have to do is question. You should take responsibility as the parent and say you've done something to distort nature, because as humans we're in that strive right from the start. Like we were briefly talking about the ability to just be serious anymore is no longer acceptable. Right. One thing about Kobe, if you look at Kobe when he was a competitor, we were talking about this dude,
business game
face.
Yeah, business.
He had that look, right? And it's accepted because he's a high level athlete. But in a lot of areas, as a parent, if you are that way, you're going to be ostracized. Now it's no longer socially acceptable to be just serious. And so sometimes I think it has to start with just accepting that you have to be serious about something. Mm-hmm. Not to be overly dramatic, but and it's been said before, the simple way to look at it is when you say the term, it's either life or death.
Right.
But if you said that now, you're like, you're being too serious, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Be happy. Yeah. Like, just relax a little. Like,
pursue your happiness.
Right. We don't need that intensity.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, if you want to strip down the initial, in my perspective, the initial language of greatness, is that those people are approaching their days every day from the perspective of life or death.
Right.
They're not chasing happiness. They're not chasing comfort. They're not.
Right. Well, happiness and comfort will become a byproduct,
of course,
right, of achieving their goal,
and that will become one of their greatest nemesis.
Right.
For most people, that's the nemesis. We living in a Marvel
Superhero world.
superhero world. So
Yeah.
I'll give them a jewel that was dropped by Bane when he is about to break Batman's back. He says, victory has defeated you. Because sometimes anybody who's achieved any success, and I'll even speak from a personal perspective, that has been the number one greatest enemy that I've personally faced is you
Achieving a level of success.
and then you reap those rewards and you start to eat at better restaurants and you start to travel and you start to have all these
Your
things.
life
and-
changes.
Yeah, you get
Your
a little
life
softer.
changes. Yeah, your life changes, and then all of a sudden, the things that got you there are not your normal custom anymore, right? And some people say, "Oh, well, you're leveling up." Yeah, you are. But if you're, and I'm gonna use you as an example. If you're in the fight game, like I was telling my nephew, the boxer, you're in a game where you're trying to hurt the other guy.
And,
Right?
that guy's trying to hurt
Yeah,
you.
he's trying to hurt you, and there's no friendship. There's
Right.
no ding ding. It's on.
Right.
Defend yourself at all times. That's a different type of concept of life that, unless you're in the game, you can't really understand it. Like basketball, you're scoring for points. And the fight
Right.
game is you and another guy, and whoever's will is stronger and he can endure more pain is going to win.
Right. And so when we talk about being serious,
Mhm.
just to switch it back to, because most of the people, ideally young people who are watching this, they're not thinking about becoming fighters. They may
Right.
not think about going to the NBA, but they may be thinking about getting into business. I've never met anybody who doesn't want to have a relatively comfortable life. You need to have that same approach. When you think about, like you said, you go into the ring, you're going against somebody who's literally trying to hurt you, right? They're literally, and you're literally trying to hurt them.
Their job is to take you out.
In business, men, women, they put smiles on their face, but they're trying to have a bigger business than you. And most of the time, the greatest lie you ever hear is it's not personal, it's just business, right? But if somebody takes business from you or undercuts your business or does something to sabotage your business, what's more personal than you not being able to make a payment to your child's school or telling your family, we're not going on vacation this year because X, Y, Z.
Things
You
are
have
not
to have
working.
that same mentality as an approach to business. You have to. You have to have that mentality as an approach to anything. You have to be comfortable, be serious, and be comfortable with having enemies. Knowing that whether it's, I've loved it in athletics, and obviously I'm from the fight world, so it's a little easier because it's clearly identified.
You can
This is
identify your
enemy.
opponent. Yeah,
Right.
you can identify your
But
opponent. In the real world,
in the real
it's
world,
harder
in business,
to identify that. Yeah.
I can tell you, and this is something that some will find funny, that for a lot of years, I would purposely keep a T-shirt with the logos of every school that I closed down. Guys that would open up close to me
Right. In your
and would
vicinity.
fail.
Right.
Because it would remind me that, like I knew what they were trying to do. Like we were spending a tremendous amount of money on marketing. We were getting a lot of traction, and we were at a high price point. So it was very easy to open near me, charge
Undercut your
lower,
prices, yeah.
and you can survive.
Mhm.
But that's not sustainable
Right.
on a long enough timeline. On a long enough timeline, unless you have to drive the Sentra, you want the highest you could afford.
Yeah.
And that's what we were trying to educate people on. Like it didn't matter whether you can go Mercedes. If you were, you want the best you can in whatever realm you're at. So if you're at that Sentra level, it's made by Nissan. What do they make, the Maxima?
I think so.
Right.
Sentra, Maxima, yeah.
But
yeah.
the point being is that
Ultima, yeah.
there's something higher up,
Right.
and that's what you're striving for.
Right.
And so even in business, I found that that's what people would do. Like they may have to start there, but that's not what they want. So if they're choosing you just because you're the cheapest, you're going to be a dead business.
Well, you become a commodity at that point. So the big thing is what people understand is, going back to what you said, is if you can't basically compete with people you don't know because you don't know what their business model is, right? So they might be working in a negative, and they might have a certain amount of money that they can use to work in a negative. I think Amazon has done it to every competitor. Shout out to Jeff Bezos, where he'll see what's selling, he'll duplicate it at a cheaper cost, and of course because he has the plug, he has distribution. When say Amazon recommended, his shit will pop up first, and he'll put people out of business. But people don't understand, but he can work at a deficit.
Right.
He has credit lines. He's working for years. Like his game is crazy macro, crazy long game.
And so when we talk about being serious, if we want to bring it back to the Kobe mindset and the mindset of first success, which is just the base level, the language of greatness is completely uncomfortable for, I would say, 99% of the population. Because
Why do you think that is?
Because most humans are walking around with a slave mentality. It's just what it is. Unless you've come from that percentage of when most kids are going to school, they're chasing like, yeah, I have to be great at biology and math without really even knowing if that's. Whereas if you went to some of these elite schools, if you look at how they're set up as networking opportunities. Like they're taught like these are the people that are, if you're going to one of these prestigious prep schools, and I'm not just advocating that, but the reality is the reason why you have those schools is because they're networking places.
They're places of proximity.
It's why does money all go to the Hamptons together? Why do they go to Aspen? Why do they Christmas in Honolulu? Like there's reasons why, and
there's patterns to it. Yeah.
There's a networking perspective to this,
right.
And so most of so when in my perspective, they start with the mindset of just not understanding what they're supposed to be doing, how important that part of the game is, how important
at school. You mean?
Yeah,
at school.
Just starting there.
Yeah. I think what you've created at Excel Martial Arts is incredible because, and I'm talking from experience, where you put like-minded families together, and the thinking is I just want my kid to have some sort of discipline, be in some sort of athletic shape, but I want a better life for them. And this is maybe this starts introducing discipline and getting bells and things like that. Just it shows them, yeah, you work for it, you get this. You work for it, you get this. But then you put a group of people together, and I've made some of my best friends, and you're one of them at the school.
And here's the other thing about this, and we could one day just talk about that, right? Okay. Because we used to do it in groups of 3, not just with the kids, because what we found is that if you put 3 like-minded kids together, they're going to raise up together. Okay. And so if you look at, and I'll use my own son, for example, it was Jovan, Jojo, and Wilson. All these kids became...
They were like the same age?
Yeah, all same age, all high-level athletes, all straight-A students, relatively modeling each other, and they kind of pushed each other. I didn't have to necessarily be the drill sergeant because you put them around.
Who you're around, yeah, right.
I knew like these kids have the same level of ambition. They have the same, and then so you match them. And every once in a while you throw that kind of anomaly in there and see if you can raise,
if you can attract it,
if you can pull it in. Because sometimes like we were talking about when I don't necessarily want to put all the blame on the parents, but when we talk about that kind of having that slave mind mentality that just like you go to college, you're gonna go to the fields,
get a job,
do your thing,
health insurance,
which is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I mean,
if that's for you,
yeah,
well,
right.
Just to touch on that, like the generation prior to us, well, I can speak for myself, where my mom came from Puerto Rico, not knowing English. She needed security, right? Because she had nothing.
Right.
Her ground zero was fucking beneath the basement. So she was like, look, get something that you can stable, you can depend on, and build from there. So she built whatever platform she built, and she felt good there. She enabled me to maybe get a little more breathing room, because if we're talking about people being off center, like being in a deficit, living in a deficit is a big thing. Like most of America lives in a deficit, and because they live in a deficit, what I mean by that is in some sort of poverty. Because they live like that, their thinking is skewed, going back to the slave mentality, because they're kind of desperate just to make it to Friday.
And that transcends even through middle class and even upper middle class, because what ends up happening is, and we've actually tested this with our price points, whether we opened businesses in Larchmont, we were in Greenwich, we've been in South Bronx, Lower East Side. We've gotten a good feel.
Right.
If you make $50,000 a year, you're going to have $50,000 a year problems. You're going to have a car that matches that income. You'll have an apartment or a house that matches that income. You're going to have all those issues. You jump up to 100, 125,000. Your car has changed. All
your dress has changed.
Your dress code has changed. The neighborhood you live in has changed a little, but you're still eating the same expendable income up. And this goes all the way up, all the way up to ladder. So you end up finding that I've met people that are making $400,000 or $500,000 a year, and they have the exact same expendable income as somebody who is making $50,000, $60,000. It's really a wild dynamic.
It kind of reminds me of certain animals that only grow as big as their surroundings. Like the alligator, I think the crocodile. Like if you put him in a small tank, he stays small.
Goldfish.
You put him out there, he turns into like a 6-foot beast. Yeah. So I think that what people have to understand, that there has to be the bigger plan. So you make 200,000, you don't have to live like you're making 300,000. Maybe you live like you're 150, and you try to make smart investments. And you know what? Some of it is a crapshoot. You can be educated. You can, put your stuff in smart investments or things that are not deemed smart. Nobody really knows what smart is now because things change so much. But people don't understand that it's work, right? And you haven't made it because you made $1 million. Because once you get, like, I believe life is almost like walking upstairs, hitting a landing, then looking around and seeing another flight of stairs, right? And then you're going, oh shit, there's another level. So once you hit your million, I'm just using a number, 100, 200, 300, whatever. I like the number million. You hit $1 million and you get there and like, oh shit. So there's more, right? There's more. Going back to Kobe when he was doing the Kanye commercial, like, I've got this, I got that, more.
Right.
There's
no matter
always
what
more.
You said.
But you have to be comfortable with that. Like, you have to understand that, and you have to not be angry about that. That's what I think people miss. They're like, oh, fuck that. No. Yo, be grateful you get to play. Life is finite. That shit is, one day and the next, like, you're not here no more. And the game's over, so you'll go all the way. Try, and enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy the journey.
I didn't say be a joyless person.
Right.
But I said
find some harmony. Yeah, be serious when you have to
be.
Right, when you have to be.
There's a time when it comes to the important things. Let's just start with health and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, what's going on with COVID? You can get your vaccine. We won't get into all the police and all that.
No politics, no religion, no COVID right here.
But the point being is your best chance is having a great immune system and being in great shape.
Investing in your own health.
This you could take responsibility for. You could literally say tomorrow, you know what? I'm going to take actions every day from this day on.
Take a walk. Get the camera on me. Do some push-ups. It's not that hard. Like, you don't need, I don't have the gym. So keep on with the excuses.
A simple thing, and this will be the last thing. COVID is a respiratory illness. This is what it is, right? Which would mean you need a great cardiovascular system. You need a great set of lungs on you that is going to be able to recover and handle the swelling and all these other things. But this is the part that you're not really hearing about.
Right.
So the first thing people need to do, we say, with everything, be serious. Start with your health and fitness. Your finances and your business, that could come down the line.
Mm-hmm.
In my world,
without health,
you got
nothing matters, right? Nothing matters. Because you can have $1 billion, but if you can't get out of bed, it don't matter. It don't matter, right?
So if I was going to start with your health and fitness, and then also start with your family, because if your family's chaotic, you're not doing anything unless you're going to be
because you're busy putting out fires all day.
Yeah. You have to get serious
yourself
with them and say, listen, this is the direction we're going, and
this is what I need you to do. Right? This is what I'm doing. This is what I need you to do. Yeah. I'm having these conversations all the time with my kids. So
that language. So when we talk about that, you have to decide, like, okay, so the truth of the matter is, and I would challenge anybody who's watching this, is for the next week, watch the language and how they talk with their children, how they talk to their spouses, how they talk to their friends, and how much of that language is a language of mediocrity. How much of that language is just like trying to find comfort, trying to find happiness. And if that's your drive, that's cool. Just get out of the lane. There's people that want to drive in that fast lane. Go to the middle. Or the right lane.
Or the right.
Right?
Most people, I believe, live in the middle.
Yeah, there's a lane.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think most people want to, they have it in them.
They like to watch the left lane. They like to watch it and be like, oh, I wish I could do that. And they could, but with that comes their fear of failure, right? And sometimes, it's okay. You could fall on your face. I fall on my face many times.
All the time. We could one day have a discussion of just how many times I've failed, which is plentiful. And then we could also talk about how many times it's easy to sit and talk about the successes.
The wins,
those feel good.
And they make me look good, right?
Of course. Right. But it's how you frame and what you do with those losses. Like, I mean, if you've been in the school a long time, we try to teach the kids from a very young age, right? There's no losers, there's learners. Just so that the concept of failure, because even if you're in the gym, if you haven't done that set to the point where your arm is shaking, then
you haven't really done it. I tell my kid the other day, I said, until you're ready to put something on the bar and have no spot. I told him that, like, I've been there. Like, I'll put 2 1/4 on the bench and I'll go for as many as I can. And if I can't, then you roll that shit off your stomach. And you gotta be okay with that. Like, I've done it. Oh shit, I'm done. I roll because I can't. There's no spot. You can't be afraid of it,
right?
Because you'll never hit your potential if you're always afraid of failing.
So in some areas, we're completely okay with that. But in other areas, it's like we haven't set the risk reward parameters in their minds properly. You know, like they should be allowed, if they want to move out, you should encourage it. If they need to come back, there should be no ridicule. They took a chance. Like the complete concept of, you know, the reason why, like when you talked about your mom providing a little bit more security and a little bit more
stability, being stable,
a better nest, right?
Yeah.
Is so that you had the opportunity to fly even further.
Right.
And that's what the goal should be. But the goal shouldn't be to create any type of stagnation. We should be trying to, like, for me personally, like, I believe there's always going to be there's enough jobs. You could always get a job.
You can make a job.
But that's what if you look at the back of the shirts, that's what we are constantly talking about. Try to create, because you can do that. People do it all the time. You create your income. The same way, if you didn't like your family the way you grew up, you don't change it.
Yeah.
Create a different family.
Start with yours, right? Start with your 4 and create a whole different thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, even at the most simplest thing, the next time whoever's watching this goes on vacation, think about the exact vacation you want and create that. The experiences, leave nothing to chance. I want to be at the pool at this time. I want to drink this. I want to have this. You could create the exact experience
and manifest
you want.
it.
You just gotta be willing to think it through and take action that's specific to those goals. But when we're talking about that language of greatness, we're going to go back to Kobe for a second. I think it's important that if they want to Google that, I think it's an important concept of not looking back. So, like, one of the things today that I was committed to doing is, like, and I'm glad the conversation went this direction, is because sometimes you have to say things just so that people will listen, right? Like, oh, you've accomplished this, you've accomplished that. But the truth of the matter is, if there's anything I've learned from being around successful people, they live in a consistent state of present and future, and not
the past.
Reverse. They don't.
Right.
That's something that is people that usually are not successful, or they're already completely complacent. They're just happy. Oh, well, you know, I did this. I had my kids. Whatever.
I've hit the epitome of my life.
Right.
Like I hear this sometimes, and I'm like, I don't agree with it. I just kind of take it. Oh, my high school years are the best years of my life. I'm like, word?
Al Bundy was, if you watch, what was that, Married with Children?
Yeah.
He was basically trying to tell people. He was like, listen, this is what happens if you adopt that mindset.
Right.
You become me. You will sell shoes, whatever. Your wife's going to disrespect you. Your kids will treat you like crap. This is going to be your life if your best years were high school years.
Right. I hear that sometimes. I'm like, wow, it's crazy. And one guy, I forgot who I was talking to, he expanded. He was like, it was a good time where, like, there was no real pressure and stuff like that. But some people embrace pressure. I think, me personally, I become my best under pressure. It just helps me focus in. Like, I could turn everything off because I know what I have to do, and you just zoom in. Other people, they kind of fall apart with it because they don't know where to start. And, you know, I tell them, you start by taking a step forward. You just, hey, man, all right, so this is where we have to go. All right, so let me strategize how I have to do this, and now let me execute my strategy. And if I'm off, at least I can tell where I'm off and you know, recalibrate. But most people just
but you should even say it, what it really so that people get comfortable with something. When you said when we're off,
if I fuck up, I just fix it. Yeah, I just fix it
and you redirect.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. People don't want to hear that word.
Yeah, the biggest thing, I think, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, he works at Adobe. Shout out to Clive. When I first started the media stuff, I didn't know he worked for Adobe. He's pretty big time at Adobe. He deals with, you got to be like a $5 million company or better for him to talk to you. And he was like, oh, let's do lunch. And we did lunch. And he just started asking me questions, which I thought was really weird. He was like, hey, so what's your marketing strategy? So I told him, this is what I'm doing, and this is how we're doing it, and these are the pillars, and then this is what I'm trying to, like, I'm a high touch business. Even though in my business, most people just want to be like quick in and out. Sometimes the people that I want to talk to are the ones that maybe don't have access to certain banks or whatever. Anyway, so I went into this whole long thing, and he was like, yo, I want to have lunch with you because here you are doing this plan that you mapped out, and people pay us millions of dollars for this plan. And he was like, how did you think of it? I was like, well, I thought of it, and if I'm wrong, I'll just fix that shit. You know, he was like, there it is. Because I didn't know it was going to work. You know, like I still don't know. It's working, but, you know, I don't know what's going to do in 5 years. But
and the speed that you do that, right? So I guarantee you, like, that whenever somebody has a failure, which we all get it. People have to get really comfortable. I use it in the terms with fitness, because if you've gone to the gym and you didn't fail, you wasted your time, right? But even as it applies to business and strategies, until you've hit your optimum number, you should be comfortable that you're going to be doing something. Fail, that's progress, because you're going to have learned something. Sometimes it takes long. It shouldn't take you a year, but sometimes it may take 2-3 weeks. It could take a month. The point is, how long does it take people to course correct or recover from those failures? That's
just to take your model, your example, and expand on it. So hypertrophy, right, which is the ability of you're building muscle by ripping it up, tearing it up, you eat, it rebuilds stronger because your body kind of learned, hey, I got to fucking be stronger because this guy's doing some crazy shit. So it gets strong. It's the same thing for your character, right? The more failures you take, as long as you understand that they refine you and they're not defining you, they don't make you who you are. They help mold you into who you have to become. This is a conversation I've had with Isaiah all the time, Jacob. They just help you define what you don't want, right? And if you fail, that's cool. That's all right. All right, so that's not, we're not going to the right anymore. We're going to the left. But you have to be able to accept that and be humble enough to ask for help sometimes, because the reason you ask for a coach or a mentor is maybe not make as many mistakes on your trip.
That's it.
Right? Because that's
100% the reason why.
You just want to like get somebody to help you get there a little faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to just backtrack on something, because I think it's an important thing for people to understand it. And I'm a little bit of a word snob, right? So because when somebody's reading a book, and it's something that everybody goes through, you're reading a book, and you get to the end of that page, and you're like, man, what the hell did I just read? I lost this. It was a waste. My mind went somewhere.
Right. I wasn't invested.
The simple solution, there's an answer to that. The answer is that somewhere along that line, in those lines, you read a word that you didn't know the definition of. And you may have understood the gist,
right,
but your brain, working like it's
didn't
normal,
connect.
It's stuck there. It's spinning like that wheel.
Thinking about that word.
What's that word? And everything else, now your comprehension process has slowed down, which is why we teach the kids, and my own and in the leadership groups, you read, you don't have to read with a dictionary anymore because you have Google, but if there's a word that you even remotely don't know,
look it
define
up.
It, right?
Right.
Now, the reason why I say that is because you said the word character, and then you were talking about molding. The root word, if you were to look up the root word,
the Latin word, the Latin root of character,
is to chisel.
Ah, okay. Oh, look at
chisel.
You. Okay.
And so everybody
and
needs
to chisel means to shape,
to mold.
Right.
You said
to
it.
mold. Right.
And so building character, everybody starts off as this blob of putty.
Right.
You're at different phases of it, but your goal is to turn yourself into a masterpiece. And your parents are the ones that usually are doing this, but only you as the individual are going to be that soft touch that makes it a masterpiece. Right. The parents can't do that for you.
Right.
Even a coach can't do that.
They give you the roughage. Right.
We're going to give you the rough parameters of it.
Right.
But that smooth, that last finishing, sanding cloth that has to be used, that has to be done by you. And the truth of the matter is, most people, and I've coached long enough that I can say, most people don't want that responsibility. It's so much easier to
for themselves.
Right. So much easier to say, oh, my parents, they didn't raise me this way, or I had a bad relationship and it did this to me and I did that. I mean, I hear it all the time. I'm not going to argue with them. Sometimes I'll try to redirect and reframe, but the truth of the matter is, you're not making that major paradigm shift, until you take ownership of
accountability,
everything.
Yeah.
You had a bad relationship. He's a terrible person, but you picked him.
Let me ask you a question. So you talk about leadership, right? So you have a group of a leadership group in your karate school. Yeah. So how do you pick those individuals? That's a good question for me.
So
how do you identify who you think will be a good fit for it?
This is
this is another conversation.
I've done it two ways.
Okay.
And I'll give you an interesting. The first group of leadership, I wanted the most dysfunctional kids I could find. Okay. But the number one commonality was that I didn't want parent involvement. That sounds crazy, right? Okay. But I'm going to tell you something. That original group was 15 kids, and all I did was immerse them in the idea that they had to create their own income. To this day, 11 of those 15 are still self-employed.
Really?
11 of the 15.
Wow.
Yep.
And when was that?
That was so I opened school in 97. That would have been from like 97 to 2000, 2001. Okay. Those years. All I did, or the only thing they ever heard, they never heard. Self-employed. No college. That's even back then. I didn't start getting softer on college until I had my own kids, and I realized like, oh well, I didn't go to college. I want my own kids to go to these great schools.
You want them to experience things that you didn't experience.
Right. But the truth of the matter is, I always knew. I mean, if I'm going to speak freely, I knew in the 90s that's not going to help you because I had been around kids with degrees and I was like, I wouldn't even hire you.
Yeah.
Like your parents had the money to push you through school and or you took all these student loans for whatever reason, but there's nothing special. You got nothing out of that degree.
I think
that makes you unique.
The crazy part in terms of college education for me was that I had a certain type of friend. I went to Lehman High School. I went to public school. I'm a really good test taker, and I had a certain set of friends. And well, I'll take it back. I went to 143 in another part of the Bronx, right? It was 7th, 8th, 9th. On 9th grade, they switched me because my mom married this white guy, Danny, my stepfather, and he moved us to Pelham Bay. And then my friends from 143 all went to Kennedy. Not one person I knew from 143 graduated graduated high school. I'm sorry, graduated high school. So I get to high school, I get to this new high school, and you meet people and stuff like that. And then I make some friends. I was a camp counselor, and I met and you have high school kids, college kids, you have a group of different people, and you meet people that are in college already. They're like, yo, it's really important that you go. I'm the first one to graduate from my family, so it was important for my family. But I didn't understand, like, when you get to college, then you meet people that are different. Like, their whole family structure is different. Like, they have a mother and father, and they have means. That people flying from Cali and from England, and you mean, like, you're immersing yourself in this whole big world. Whereas we all suffer from sort of myopia, where we just know our little world. And then when I went to college, it opened up my mind. And I think the biggest, if not the biggest thing for me, was that for college was to open up my mind to see, yo, this game is bigger than I thought. This game is so much bigger. And then I want to play. And I want to play.
It definitely serves its purpose. And so, and going back to, so that first generation, that's what the result. But there was something that I saw as a fundamental flaw with the next generation. And so the next generation, I pushed off, and I said, everybody's going to get a college degree. And this is the Bronx. This is like what you said, where most kids, this is Zariga, Castle Hill, where most kids were
don't think about that.
They weren't even going to college, right? And so out of that group, every one of them graduated from college.
Okay.
Every one of those kids has a job right now.
Okay.
Which is good.
Whether they're happy or not,
but
whether
not
it's a big
one
time or not.
self-employed person with me giving them the same information, the same. So I didn't impress the ideology that this was the only way.
Right. This is a way.
I gave them as this is a way, but I wanted them to have the education because I thought maybe this would provide even more of an advantage. And in my opinion, it almost worked to their detriment. It turned out that wasn't exactly true. What we found going forward in the
later
future
in research
is, because it's a balance. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
What really was the determining factor was the character skills. That
define that.
So start with discipline.
Okay.
The ones that had this innate ability to embrace discipline, they all were the most successful ones. The ones that, if I said, listen, you need to run every day, that I didn't have to check up on them. I didn't have to force them.
They were running.
They just did it.
Yeah.
It's 100 push-ups before we even start the workout. You got to read this book. It wasn't like there was some in this program. I won't mention their names. That I would see them 10 minutes before, like trying to read because they knew we were going to discuss.
We talk about it. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like,
I'm here, right?
And I get what they're doing, but at the end of the day, they're missing the point.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to break their heart, but I knew I could see you're going to end up where you're going to end up because this mentality is not what it takes.
This becomes an accountability thing. I think this is why services are so proliferate. And what I mean by that is like personal training. Use that for an example. People don't like to work out for the most part. They don't like pain. They don't like discomfort. They like to just chill. And I really see this like when I go on like basketball tourneys like in Pennsylvania. You go to different states and you see the state of obesity in America. Like it's like you're like, is it me? Am I bugging? Or is everybody puffy here, right? And I remember going to, Isaiah had something in Pennsylvania, Spooky Nook, and we were in Pennsylvania, and I was like, yo, it's crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we went to IHOP because, we're kind of like on vacation. So, you do like vacation things because you're watching them play. But these people are not on vacation. They're living there every day, and they're eating there every day, and they're not understanding that, what you do every day, it starts to compound, right? Like,
for sure.
Like I tell certain people, I'm like, you are what you do the majority of the time. So if you like to eat out once a week, that's not gonna kill you. If the other 6 days or 7 days you're training, like I tell like some of my friends, I'm like, yo, I make sure I train at least five times a week because I don't want to just blow up. Because I like the good life. I like to eat, I like to, do whatever I do. And, but I know there's a balance to it. Like if I want to look a certain way and feel a certain way, I got to put in the work at the gym. And,
with that discipline.
What I feel is that, people like, they go to trainers and they'll be like, oh, I did everything you said. And then he'll be like, yeah, what'd you eat this week? And then all of a sudden it gets exposed. You're like, oh, I had cake. I had this.
Always.
Yeah.
And so if you were to start with the first thing we talked about, if this person has hired a personal trainer and they've gone that, and then they say they've eaten cake, they're just not serious.
What's the point? Yeah.
They're not approaching that they're not approaching that training
You're
as
acting.
a life and death.
Yeah, there
You just it's a novelty. It's I got the income. I'm gonna get this personal trainer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you look like shit. But exactly. I got a trainer.
It's not. It starts with that, right? The second part where you have to kind of be smart or try to work on getting some education. You don't even have to worry about for them because they're not serious. They're not starting the game from being serious. You don't even, and that's where I've had the biggest disconnect with mentoring and coaching. It's like, if I see it early on that they're just not serious, then why
take them on?
Why educate? Why even?
Why waste your time? Because that's what you look at.
Yeah.
Well, it's my time. It's my time. It's finite.
And it is finite.
Yeah, I only have so much time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't say that to people because you may sound a little selfish, but people who understand that language of greatness know that if I'm going to waste 30 minutes talking to you, reframing you, or sharing something, and that's going to go in that ear and just go out and you're going to totally why would I do that?
Yeah. And if there's no chance of me changing your perspective, then let's stop right here. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And it becomes a tough time. Like in my business, a client will come to me and be like, I want to do this. And I'll look at the financials. I'll be like, all right, so this is what it looks like now. I have a good example. So I had a client that was in contract for this condo in New Rochelle, and he was working with another banker. Pre-construction, Davenport. And the banker was like, yeah, everything looks fine, da-da-da. So they finished the condos. So obviously the developer wanted to get his money back, right? They built this multi-million-dollar thing. So he goes to his banker, he's like, yo, should we be doing something? He goes, yeah, no, we're good. So one day to the next, the banker says, oh, we don't do new construction. You would have known that 2 years ago. Then his attorney calls me in a quick, I need you to fix it. What can we do here? So I was like, send me the package. Let me see so I looked at his income and I told him in a nice way. I was like, hey, but you're buying something for 1.7. You don't make enough money. Did they not tell you this? He goes, no, he never told me that. He's self-employed. He can adjust his income. He makes what he makes. So I was like, look, we're going to have to go this way because this way doesn't work. And you should have known this 2 years ago. But the guy was serious. He's like, yo, whatever we got to do, tell me what we got to do. I'm going to do it. And everything I told him to do, he executed. Yo, you have to pay off your Bentley.
Did it get done?
Oh, it's closed. Yeah. But I was like, you have to pay off your Bentley. He's like, done. He's like whatever it took, that's serious. Because I told him, I was like, wasting my time too, right? Because I'm here coaching you. I don't get paid to coach you. I get paid to close the deal. You're so far away from closing the deal that most people are going to walk away from you.
Right.
But I said, I can help you, but you got to listen. He was like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And I think that was a really good example of when you're saying people being serious. Because he was like, look.
And I bet you he had money to lose already.
Well, I was going to go there. Look, it's easy when you're about to lose $350,000, right? Yeah, so it's easy to focus up. Yeah, right. It's easy to focus up.
That's the difference between self-discipline and discipline. That's and I'm not crapping on anybody, but for most people, that would be an example of being disciplined. Mm-hmm. That's the stick waiting to come and say, you're going to lose 350. Right. So you're on your P's and Q's.
Right.
The true freedom and the ones that I've found that get close to touching some form of greatness have embraced self-discipline. Like you said, like
they know
they don't even have to get to that point because they've already embraced, they're taking steps every day to make sure it could still happen, but they've minimized the potential for that.
Right.
Through discipline, because it spills over in everything.
In everything, right, right. I was having this conversation with Isaiah the other day, and I was like, look, I train at 5, I wake up at 4:30, I walk the dog, I do it. I train from 5, I told him to 6:30. And the reason I trained that is because, first of all, I had something happen with my mom where she suffered strokes. And so health is important to me. I was telling him because for some reason, this generation, if it's not guaranteed, they don't hear you. I was like, it doesn't guarantee anything. I get hit by a car tomorrow. But if I can give myself the best fucking chance to live to whatever I'm going to live to with a quality of life, like walk on my own and do, I was like, this is what I got to do. And I was like, I want you to understand that. Because like, I was telling him, like, he lives life, like in a cloud. Like he's the golden child. He lives, everything he wants, he touches, he wants, he gets. So I'm like, it's not always like that. I said, and this sounds shitty, but me telling you probably understand. I told him, I'm not always going to be here. What happens when I'm not here? You know, you catch yourself, right? Because I mean, I heard that when my mom told me that when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, stop. But yeah, you start thinking about that, but like, yo, I'm not always gonna be here to hold everything down.
And there's even a worse side to that.
Go ahead.
Right? It's because he's, like you said, you touch, you get whatever you want. You get whatever you want. But we were just talking about, in this game, there's so many different levels. So he's getting to play at one level, gets comfortable at this level, but what happens when you can't make it happen at that next level?
Right.
When you can't get him a house in the Hamptons, or you
Right.
can't, there's going to come a point where you're not going to be able to flex that muscle because there's levels to this.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
playing the game as we need to play it for where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And so with our kids, the quicker you can snap them to reality, like, you have it good, but you better be ambitious. You better find that because it's in him. It's just, in my opinion, it's in everyone. It's in our DNA, programmed to survive.
The kid did drop a gem on me, and I have to share it with you because he just brought it out. He tells me when we're just talking, and he goes, "Dad, you understand?" Like, he goes, "I understand you." He goes, "I respect where you're from, and I get it." He's like, "But from what I've studied," he said this, most people that do great things come from adversity. And he was like, "And I don't really have too much adversity." So I try to spin it on him. I was like, "Well, are you starting on your basketball team?" He goes, "No." I was like, "That's adversity. You want to start? Then hunker down, bro. Do what you got to do to be a starter." I was like, "You have to look for your adversity." Sometimes it's not that, obvious. Like, if I don't work, we don't eat, that's obvious. Right. But I was like, you can look for your adversity. And I said, and don't shy away with it. Moreover, don't fucking get mad about it. Like, embrace it. Like, and even if you like bust your ass and you don't become the starter this year, but you are, you're so much of a better player.
Right.
So you're winning anyway. But it takes time. It takes time for them to hear it.
That's a good point because everybody's having adversity, and it's as important to them as the next level of adversity because it's whatever you're experiencing at that moment is the most
it's super big,
painful to you at that moment.
Yeah.
The quickest way is you just got to take him and expose him to enough in life and share stories with him. And look, one thing we know about adversity is it's coming for everyone.
Yeah,
it
at
is
a certain point in your life,
it's
you're
coming.
Gonna hit it.
Why would we even try to protect them from some pain? Like, because it's coming. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Your best bet is to let them get their doses of it so that you could course correct, teach them how to reframe, teach them how to have the right language so that this story becomes something that could make you powerful, could make you stronger, as opposed to crushing you. Right. Because an untrained mind,
the right mindset,
right? Bad things happen to people, to everyone.
Yeah,
right?
Unfortunately, it's coming. You can't protect people from everything.
But if you look at people, going back to that language of greatness, those people have those events and the stories that they're telling, the meanings that they give those stories. That's literally what's going to be the driving force. We have a friend, a mutual friend, who tells a story of being a provider, doing his thing, and then one day his kid saying, "You're not spending time with me," and he goes, "Well, the man response, I got to make money," and the kid puts the piggy bank at his pillow the next morning.
Yeah,
right. And the crazy thing about that scenario is that there's two ways that could have happened, right? He could have said, "I'm not going to focus on work and become this great dad," or he could have completely reframed that story and look at how he lives his life now. He probably makes 5 times what he made at that moment and spends 5 times as much time with his kids.
Right.
So it's how you frame this story, what the meaning you're going to give it. That's going to dictate. Like, we're all getting that same win, right? But how you adjust those sails is going to determine who goes the furthest.
Right.
And so that's what the story is. The story is essentially, what you're doing with that win, how you adjusted those sails. And I it's the reason why we make that black belt test. People's like, "Why are you doing this?" Like, I've had parents literally tell me, "Oh, so basically, I'm paying for
my son get hurt?
Sanctioned child abuse."
Really?
And, yeah, because, and I'm like, and once you explain, it's like, you know what, you're getting on my dime, on my effort, a free opportunity to see how your kid is going to handle adversity. And not only that, your kid is going to actually find out what he has because as an adult that it's coming. It's going to come from him. There's absolutely nothing you can do. You're going to be faced with adversity. This is a chance for you to see what needs to be corrected, what needs to be fixed. How do they quit? How do they respond under pressure? And that was always the goal. It was
I remember
to create an
I remember
adverse
watching
experience.
Jacob's black belt promotion. It was a Zuriga, and I was watching from outside, and I saw what it was. Like, it's a controlled environment. Like, you know, I saw you were exhausting with lactic acid buildup. I was breaking up, but maybe it's because of who I am, right? And you know, mom is back and forth, back and forth. I was like, babe, they have pads on. Nobody, babe, he does this all the time. Like, understand, nobody's gonna hurt anybody.
Right.
It's just a controlled environment to see how far he can go.
But that's the most serious thing in their mind.
Yeah.
If you've ever talked to any of them while they're going through it, it's like they feel like they're on the verge of death.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
they just don't know no different.
Right.
You know, they don't
Right.
know. This
Right.
This has been the most strenuous experience that they've had up until that point.
Right.
But yeah, the goal was in the early black belt test, they would all have to read a little Nitschke, and it was to start with his.
So you were shaping their minds as well as
Yeah.
their bodies. Okay.
What does not kill me will make me stronger. I wanted to embed that in them. I wanted to embed that from an early on belief system that if you're still breathing, you still have fight in you.
Yeah.
You could still be in this game. You could still be. It doesn't matter if the last 10 years have been terrible for you. If tomorrow you wake up, like, it's going to take time to build that momentum and get that inertia going, but you can start taking an action each day and course correct and get back to whatever the long-term goal really was.
So so we went a little over it, but I want to kind of encapsulate something. So you had competitors, right? Other schools that coming in really cheap. Do you feel, and we don't know, we don't want to take away, but we can be honest because the proof is in the pudding. The results speak for themselves. Do you feel that other dojos or other Shihans were trying to deep dive character build the way you were? Because
No.
Well, there it is.
Completely
there
different
it is.
program.
Because
Which is why we're still here and they're not.
Well, there it is, right? It becomes the whole, I'm trying to shape something,
Right.
And it's not just the kicks and the punches.
Right. No,
it's
we're
the
on a
mind.
completely different mission.
Yeah.
And like you said, by finding those once somebody actually comes in and they've been immersed and they see like what we're actually, some people
Don't see it. They don't get it.
They just don't get it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Some people are not going to get it, no matter what. Like we're all playing with different.
But those are the
levels
clients
of
that you
IQ.
don't want anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a hurtful thing to say, but most of the time, I'm following a formula, and I'll say this publicly because I follow the Dream 100.
Mm-hmm.
If somehow you found yourself on the outside, that's because you weren't in that Dream 100.
Right.
We on a long timeline, we didn't really want you because we want
You don't
people,
fit as
you
a
don't
client.
fit.
Right.
You weren't taking the information and taking action on it. We want people that are going to say, "Oh man, wait a minute. You know what? I didn't know this, but this is good information. Maybe we should change this. You know what? I didn't think about that. Maybe we. It doesn't mean you have to adopt everything,
You
but
take what works for you, right? And
the proof is there. Like
Yeah.
we've had people, that doctors, lawyers, business owners, come from the proof of the matter. The proof is there that if you follow the majority of those principles, which start with discipline and those character skills, you're going to be successful. But the truth of the matter is that some people are not going to embrace those. And then the other thing is, if you really look, you can, on a long enough timeline, by the time your kid is about halfway, you have to be an involved parent. You have to.
Yeah.
Or you're going to also find your way on the way out. Because I'm only going to, there's a certain amount of influence I'm going to have in my 1 hour, 3 times a week, right? But then I start kind of forcing through those worksheets that go home. Oh yeah, you're going to have, like this month they're doing courage. And you have to engage with your child, talking about different forms of courage. And the simple philosophy that we've taught since my kid was a baby was there's absolutely no such thing as tough people. You're either trained or you're untrained. When you watch fighters endure what they endure, his brothers are trained.
right.
There's no difference between you and Canelo, except for that he has taken a lifetime to cultivate a hard body and an even harder mind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Worked on his threshold.
It is what it is, and they've built this, and so that's kind of what we've done. And then we try to encourage, like, you're going to see the relationship change when you as a parent start to live those principles. You don't have to be perfect at it because you've made your decisions, you're working a full-time job, but if you prioritize that progress and you're actually trying to take this step forward, you got to do it with them.
Right.
Well,
the big thing becomes, like, I believe sometimes I have friends of mine who said this, but they'll drop the kid off, not just at your school, but I'm talking about at a teacher's school, at any school. And they'll be like, well, it's his problem. I'm like, no. It's your problem. They're here to help you with that part of your child's life. But at the end of the day, it's your problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the accountability again. It's like, no, I dropped them off. You deal with that. I'm like, no, you're dealing with that. And, this person is going to teach him math, or this person is going to teach him how to be disciplined in his mind or throw kicks and punches. But it really falls back on the parent, and they don't understand that.
From a mindset,
Yeah.
and I'll just say this for anybody who has children in anything. 25 years, thousands of kids,
Thousands of students.
thousands of students, adults. I have not heard once in my lifetime somebody come back to me and say, I'm so happy my parents let me quit. I'm so happy they did that. I've always heard the complete opposite. Right. I wish they forced me to come. I wish I would have got my black. I wish I would have done this. I've never heard.
They get left with the incomplete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also it spirals, right? The same way discipline, the same way discipline spills over into other areas of your life. So does quitting.
Yeah.
They're both habits.
Yeah.
They're both habits.
There's somebody who says, I forgot, my wife reads him, Christian Larson, I believe he says that if you let things be incomplete, that starts to become the pattern. You start being okay with it.
Sure.
Like you have, like with me, I have a problem where if I don't finish something, it just fucks with my mind, where I'm like, oh, I gotta go. Let me get back to it. Let me just get back to it. Like it's always in the back of my head until I finish it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good. But it's almost like you watch The Accountant with Ben Affleck, where he starts bugging out if he doesn't complete. I'm not that crazy, but I do. There's a piece of me that if I don't complete something, and whether it's to failure or to complete or to success, it doesn't matter. But I have to complete it. I have to I can't. It's like me when I engage with a client, I can't give them half. I'm with you. Like we've done business. Like I'm with you. Relax. I got you. Like let me worry about this part. This is me. You worry about that part. And if you start letting things be incomplete all the time, it will just spill over and translate into the rest of your life. And whether that's your marriage, whether that's your business, whether everything.
Right, that wheel, and that's something that you could talk around. People who are, you get those people who may be extreme in one area, right? Maybe so they figured out, and they'll be disciplined, and they go to work and they put their 100 hours a week, and they feel, but there's always that it's coming at the price of something else.
Right.
At the terrible relationships.
Yeah.
No relationship with the kids.
Because they focused on it so much that they lost the importance of everything. Right. And the issue, I think Kobe talks about it too. He's like, yo, I put in my hours, but then I got to come home. I got to find more energy. I got to play with the kids. I got to do, I got to do this. I got to do. Exactly. I can't be great and then be shit. I got to be great across all planes. I think some people are used to being great at one thing and get defined by it, where they're like, this doesn't really matter, but holistically it does matter, because in ourselves, our spirits, like I believe our mind state, when everything's in harmony, like sometimes something needs more attention. I think if your business is, like under fire or whatever, you have to give it more attention. Or if one of your kids is going through something hard, you have to give him some attention or her attention. Or if your spouse, sometimes things need more attention than others, but it's harmony. It's because you gave it attention, everything kind of goes up. You talked about it when you said, if your family's on like crazy, like it's hard to have anything under control, because
for me personally, like it depends on where your priority lists are. Right. For some people, if their business is doing bad, they're completely destroyed.
They're shut down. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's their identity.
Right. I've always been able to handle that adversity. Right. But for me, I need cohesive peace. In the family. That's where I start. I like it there.
Right.
And once that goes, then because at the end of the day, when we talk about your philosophy, right? What's going to be now in every generation, we grew up in an era where it was very results driven. So you had goals and this. Now you have to have whys, right? That's the correct term for it now.
Right. What's your why?
Whatever it is.
Yeah,
right? It's at the end of the day, you got to find your purpose, and that'll be your core values are going to manifest. And if those are clear, you never need to put on a motivational tape. Right. You just need, if your family is your motivation, and you see your kids walking to school with, his school jacket, and like, he's going to a great school, and
we're giving him the best opportunity.
You're going to feel motivated.
You feel good,
And if your motivation is whatever it may be, it may be letting your wife stay home and be with the kids, and having a certain type of life that, if that's when you see her able to do that, you feel better.
You think about it like what we usually are is a reflection of what our deficiencies were when we were children, right? So my thing was, I was a latchkey child, so my parents were always working, so I didn't really have a lot of interaction with them. They came home at 6, they left at 6 in the morning. Like, what do you got, 2 hours? And you watch a movie and, whatever. Right. So it was important to me and to my wife I wanted somebody to be in contact until I could get to a position where I could be kind of around more, where I'm at now. But before, I had to be, I had my business was 45 miles away. Like, I had to do what I had to do to get to where I want to be. But I wanted somebody to be able to keep an eye and give them that. And they'll never understand it, right? They'll never understand it because that's all they know.
Right.
Meanwhile, like all it is basically a reflection or a reflex towards this was sucky for me. I don't want this for them. And, but they don't know anything else. So that becomes the catch-22, because later on they'll be like, oh, is everybody's mom always home? I'm like, no, bro. Like sometimes, they leave you at home and see you at 8 o'clock. Or I have some friends of mine that are, on another level of economic success, but they have au pairs and nannies and they're going to Ibiza to hang out for the weekend. But whatever. Like, everybody's different. Everybody's different. I'm no judgment.
But whatever that why is, it'll manifest. And then the person won't need that motivation, because like I said, you see it in the morning and it's right there in front of your face. So everything, and it's usually manifested, right? The lifestyle you want, whether it starts with that health and fitness, then it goes into your family, then it goes into your finance, then it goes into your toys. All these things, you see it clearly.
They'll kind of hang out together.
They'll manifest. They'll manifest.
And they're all kind of on the same level, associated. Yeah.
And if you look at one of the things that I often step back and when you look at outside the group, all you guys that have connected are very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar.
We're all trying to pull each other up,
without question.
Which is dope, because
pushing each other.
Yeah, you have other people that like, I don't want to tell him how to do that. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell him how to do that, man? Maybe he can do something. It doesn't, and it becomes a scarcity and abundance mindset where people they're golf. Like information to me right now is the next big thing that people don't give up easily, because they feel that somebody's going to do it better. And I'm like, yo, we're all just making interpretations of the same thing, right? It's like saying, oh, he has a podcast. I don't want to do a podcast. I have a podcast. Yo, everybody can have a podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really believe that in my mind. If you put enough effort into something and some thought behind it and some effort behind it, anybody can be successful. What level of success depends upon your intensity and how driven you are, right? But there's enough sunlight for everybody. Like I believe that. I believe that, but there's a lot of people that don't believe that. They're like,
depends where they're at on the abundance mindset.
Yeah, and it reflects on their circle.
For sure.
Right, because I have some guys that love to be around guys that are smaller thinkers, and because they want to feel in control, right? They want to, and I told them that I was like, yo, you're not gonna have an innovative thinker in your camp, because you attract this type of guy, because your insecurities, you want to be the guy.
Right. That's what we're talking about when you talk about that language of being great at anything. I guarantee you, and I don't know this person, I guarantee you that to sit at that dinner table would be an exercise in discipline to not vomit with the conversation. It would just probably drive. Imagine Kobe when he was talking about what he says. It's one of my favorite videos where he's like, if you're talking anything negative, please, we don't speak the same language. Just get away from me. I don't want to hear that. I don't even want any of that stuff, because then I got to spend 15 minutes reframing and getting your BS out of my mind. I don't want that shit. Like,
I don't want to get infected.
Right.
Yeah,
don't even bring
And to
that.
think of it that way is really big, because people don't understand, like, who you're around most of the time determines how big your goals get and how much you get done. Because you might have friends that are always like, all right, I'll give you another example. In high school, here's when I knew my life had to be different. In high school, the cool thing to do, so I was in all the college prep programs, and my cousin and all those guys were like not in those programs. And their big thing was to go smoke weed. And I would hang out with them, but I didn't smoke weed. And I was like, yo, this is dumb. Like, eventually I was like, fuck am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, cool, we're still cool, but it's just not me. And luckily I had the self-awareness to be like, this is not me, or I would have fell into that. And and just, it becomes a pattern. All they do, like, they get money to do this and smoke and get high and eat, get money and smoke. It just becomes a pattern.
Yeah, it becomes a cycle.
It becomes years. Yeah. It becomes years, and you lose your life. And people don't understand that. I'm thinking about my childhood, and I'm sure that people can look at their life right now and be like, yo, that pattern right there, that's not good. But maybe they haven't identified it yet, because they're just so busy in it. And I'm like, you have to be conscious, aware, push back, get perspective. If you know where you want to be, most people don't know where they want to be yet.
That's the problem. So when you start, when you said the first thing is, and I believe it's innate. I believe it's in everyone. Some people, you can't suppress it. Their ambition just comes right to the front.
Right.
For other people, it's been squashed. Sometimes it's been the parents. Sometimes it's been school. Sometimes it's been failure. But
for some reason, it's suppressed.
Yeah, the first thing I think they need to, anybody needs to take some time and get back in touch with just that natural ambition, because that's what is driving us. That's what has driven progress. The ability to want to survive. And however you want to use it, whether you say ambition, survival instinct, whatever it is, they got to get back in touch with that first. And once you get that, once you sharpen that, then it starts to become easier to drive yourself, because everything changes. Everything changes. Like, most people's ambitions start kind of low, but once they start on that path of achieving things, it never stays.
And every little success builds their confidence to go aspire for more.
Yeah. Eventually they'll hit a point. They'll hit a point where they'll say, wait a minute, hold up. And it's usually 2 steps above where they thought they would
end up. Right.
And if they get there, that's where complacency becomes the enemy. Where this comfort, this lifestyle, like, wait, you can travel when you want. You can, if you have the freedom to work when you want, you're not kind of on that. For most,
you're not
people,
under that bullet, that gun.
Man, that is the hardest point for people to get past. And I've seen it hundreds of times, and I'll be completely honest, that has been the greatest enemy for myself. It's that, are you still willing to take those risks? Are you still willing to have that warrior mindset where, you've gone far, but you're not, we're not far enough out the game where you can't tumble back.
You keep slide. You can slide back.
You can slide backwards, right? So, if anything, this experience with COVID has taught that. Right?
Absolutely.
This course, for me personally, because we own real estate, is hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But being somewhat responsible over the years has allowed that cushion to survive that. But now, I'm not trying to wait 5 years to get that back. I want that back this year.
Right. So I got to get back into it.
Yeah. I want to get right back. And I feel like you have to cultivate that mindset. You have to constantly be embracing. You have to constantly be putting yourself in the fire. And that would be what, if I was going to say what people need to start with, is start with just being serious. Like, you can look at it any way you want, but this game we're playing is finite. You have, I don't know how many examples. I have very personal examples of it, but none of us are going to be here forever.
Yeah.
None of us know how long we're going to be here. And none of us know how many good years you actually going to have.
Right.
You may be here till you're 75, and 25 of those you can't walk because you got bad knee, you just don't.
Quality of life
You really
sucks.
don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So start with just taking the good health, treating it with the respect that it deserves, and challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself. I mean, for me personally, that's kind of how I'm trying to live my life. And it's hard for me to live or be around people who don't do that.
No, I think it's not that it's hard, but I mean, you have a clear vision of what you want, and that becomes the easy thing, because now you can, like, oh, this is bullshit. This is real. This is important, right? Most people don't have a clear vision. They want, I want to be in shape for what? They don't have an answer. I can give you an answer. Like, I've had some personal struggles where I'm like, my family has a fucking history of bad this, bad that. I don't want that. So I'm just going to give myself the best chance. Does it guarantee it? Absolutely not. But I want a fighting chance, right? I want a fighting chance. I want to give myself the best chance I can. That's it. But nothing's guaranteed. And you can either embrace it and say, hey, I'm going to try, or be like, oh, you know what? This is my path. It's been pre-written. Let me just accept it, and let me just go that way. So those are the 2 mindsets that I believe are out there, and I choose the first. I choose the first to walk down my own path.
Yeah, and hopefully, as this grows, we condition people to embrace that.
Absolutely.
To first embrace just the comfort with, you don't have to be. There's no quote unquote perfect parent. There's no quote unquote perfect husband. And it is okay to sometimes just be a serious dude.
Right.
I feel like I've been, just from what I watch, and I'm in a business where I watch hundreds
of people watch a lot.
Yeah, I get to see, because I've had to watch the change, right? So I started off being young. When I first opened my business, I was 22. So most parents were 30. They were different.
Right.
And then I became of the parenting age, and now I'm a little. I got a
little wiser.
Millennials are now having the kids,
right.
And each one of these
different.
They all behave differently, so you have to kind of step back and kind of watch. So you stay in tune, keep your pulse. The problem is that while people are changing, the principles that make you successful don't.
Right.
And so
the core beliefs.
I've watching this this transition where you're having this adverse reaction to responsibility, this adverse reaction to discipline, some of these things that we just know you actually have to embrace this. In the pursuit of happiness, comfort, just this like kind of general no pressure, like, you know, I should be just living the life that I want with no, I don't owe nothing, I don't owe responsibility. Like you're seeing more of inclination towards that mindset, which is cool. If this is secular, right?
Which is cool, but also like the big thing becomes legacy, right? Like, so what are you leaving? What are you going to leave for your kid? Like, if you have kids and that's your mindset, then what's their thought process when you're no longer here, right? So what are you leaving them with? Like, we have kids, and like I tell my kids all the time, look, you don't have to be like me, but understand why I'm like this, and you know, find your own definition of it. You know, so if you say, oh, nothing matters, then nothing matters. Then you kind of aimless.
And the truth is, they're not original, because if and this is so when we talk about you have to be serious, then you have to kind of be smart. And that smart is understanding, getting information so that you could be an expert at something, getting information from mentors and different people, but also being aware of the trends, right? So we had this talk, and I'll just briefly touch on it. It's like they've grown up, most of this generation has grown up in it's of no fault of their own. It's just comfortable, right? Like if you were born in the 70s, raised in the 80s and 90s through the crack, through the crime, where there was, 2,000 murders. And like now they say, oh, New York's so bad. It's the sixth safest big city in the world. In America, and the truth of the matter is, it's really not as dangerous as it was when we were growing up. Right. You had 2,000 murders. And it was just a significant difference.
When we were growing up, landlords were burning their buildings to leave the South Bronx to try to get insurance money. They would rather burn the building, and they didn't care if they killed people inside, to get insurance money, get the fuck out of there. That's how bad it was. So think about that, right? They were burning their own buildings.
Because they couldn't sell it. Whereas now, you couldn't hold a lot. They're building on every lot. So we first have to start with that perspective. But if you're going to say that the burning happened in the 70s, right? All we need to do is go a decade before that and see the era that they're living in. The decade before that was called the decade of love, right? The 60s, the flower power generation. That's when women's rights came around. That was the biggest civil rights movement. And so you had this kind of like, we got to find this peace.
Rush for equality.
Softness, softer mentality. And that's
love
just what they're doing.
Love each other.
My challenge to them, or to everyone, is that to recognize that trend and still keep that same level of intensity, so that at least you can protect yours from knowing that if you go this route, the only thing you can do is create a weak generation. Right. That's all you're gonna do. You're just gonna slow this process.
You said it before. Weak generation, strong generation.
Yes.
Weak generation.
Right. So it's hard times make hard men make good times make weak men. This is something that they've known. Like, these are cliches. They're not joking. We can go back to the beginning, right? You go to the Rockefellers in the 1900s, the beginning of the Industrial Revolutions. Their kids created the Roaring '20s, who eventually created the Depression.
Yeah, they were partying. Yeah,
and you had World War II. You had America's Greatest Generation that created the happy days of the 50s, which created the flower power kids of the 60s, which created those terrible kids of the 70s. And the cycle repeats. It's secular, but whether or not people are able to take themselves out the box and actually see, where exactly am I in this process? So
who do I identify with?
So that I'm not just I don't want to say a victim, but just another cog in that machine, that you actually are able to say, you know what? Let me become empowered by the information and the knowledge of where we are in this cycle. Right. You don't want to plant your crops in the summer. You need to plant those in the spring. Right. Even though the weather's nice and you want it to hang out, you need to be planted.
You're working. Right. Be working.
You can go hang out in the wintertime.
Right. Because nothing's happening anyway.
You got to know the seasons. You got to know where we are. And so in some sense, we are trying to watch that from the outside. Like, where, if I'm trying to teach somebody, I'm trying to teach them, like, I get what they feel. I understand the mindset, but they need to be aware. And you can't make somebody aware. Even sometimes education and information, if they don't have the readiness, if they don't have that cognitive
they're not
ability,
ready to hear it. Right, they're not ready to hear it. They don't have the consciousness.
Yeah, there's cliches for that too, right? They say when the student is ready, the master appears, right? But the truth of the matter is, there's no rush in that. Sometimes, like, you see things and you want to tell people, and they're just, you see the blankness. They just
Did you see that? And they're like, they didn't see that, and they're like, okay, so this conversation can't happen.
Can't.
Yo, all right, listen.
Frustrate
I think we're going to go into another episode, but the language of greatness, as told by Shihan Joseph Rivera. Shihan, where can they contact you? I mean, first of all, if you want to learn firsthand, he's at Excel Martial Arts on Buer Avenue in the Bronx, and somewhere else.
Pinebrook in New Rochelle.
Pinebrook. So where could they contact you? Please speak to the camera. And
Yeah,
let them know.
you can go to the website at www.excelmartialarts.com, and you can start your journey there and see where it takes you.
And eventually we're going to talk about in other episodes about coaching, one-on-one coaching for business, performance coaching. That is something we're developing off camera, and we will come back to you soon with that. Thank you very much.